Two sections, there's still two boats in half outside.
Hi, my name's Paul Turner. I'm senior men's coach for Grosvenor Rowing Club and was sat in Grosvenor Rowing Club at the end of February 2009 at the moment. We're actually sat upstairs in the bar area of Grosvenor Rowing Club. It's a Sunday morning. Lots of crews just come off the water after doing a first session. That's 8 o'clock. Coming in for a quick bite of toast and a cup of tea before going out for a second session again. Yeah, most crews here will do two sessions on a Sunday, on a Saturday and a Sunday. It's a really broad mix at Grosvenor. Grosvenor's one of the traditional rowing clubs in Great Britain, and it takes a real broad mix of people, from people that are just leaving school through a few university students. Then most people are in full-time work and will row at weekends and in the evenings and try and put extra sessions in during the day as well if they can. And then there's quite a big veteran contingent here, so there's quite a few retired people here. So we go from 18 through to 80, everybody active on the water. Well, it's a real mix depending on what level people want to compete at. The recreational guys will probably just come down and go out for a row on a Sunday and just have their enjoyment on the water and then come in and have a beer. But the more serious athletes will be looking to do 10 to 12 sessions a week, which will be a mix of, say, 4 or 5 sessions on the water, some sessions on a rowing machine, some sessions in the weights room lifting weights, and then we mix in as well a bit of cycling, a bit of running, just to keep the minds active so you don't get too stale. Yeah, it's you know, part of the problem with being at a club like Grosvenor is you're getting people that are very different levels as well as being different ages. And you're trying to integrate them all together. So you try and there's a lot of time spent on just building base fitness, base stamina, endurance levels. But obviously, if you want to compete at the upper ends of British rowing, you need to be going quickly as well. So we do quite a lot of intense work. Fartlek type work, which is interval type training, and also the weights is an important factor. Rowing's an endurance power event. It's quite unique in that sense that as well as having the stamina and the endurance, you have to be powerful and you have to be able to put down a lot of power. Pulse, oh yes, yeah. Once you get to British rowing, you're probably aware, has been very successful over the last 15-20 years, and a lot of that's been based around the sports science that's been developed with the sport. So everybody will be, even at club level, most people will be using a heart rate monitor at some stages for their training, but at the upper echelons you're looking at they're getting individual testing, lactate testing, they're getting biomechanical testing where they're going and sitting on rowing machines and getting cameras analysing their stroke right down to the minute detail. There's a lot of money being invested in that for British rowing in the last sort of 5-10 years. Rowing, because you're having to work with a medium which is water, there's a relationship between the amount of power that you can put down and the amount of speed you can get out of a boat, and it's an exponential relationship. So once you get up to faster boat speeds, to make a boat go a little bit quicker takes an awful lot more power. To get the same change in boat speed takes an awful lot more power when you're going faster than it does when you're going slower. So women's crews, because they're less powerful, their boat speed is a lot lower than men's crews, so the differential in power between, say, a larger girl and a smaller girl has a bigger effect on boat speed. So it's a lot more challenging for smaller girls to compete against bigger girls than it is for smaller men to compete against bigger men. But then in the sport of rowing, we sort of recognise that there's that differential, and we have heavyweight and lightweight categories right the way up to Olympic level. So if you're a heavyweight woman is over 55 kilos, actually over 57 kilos, and a heavyweight man is over 70 kilos. So under that, if you're under that weight, then you can compete in the lightweight categories. Yeah, there's a number of different boat classes in rowing. You start off with a single scull, which is one man with 2 oars in a boat. Then you have doubles and pairs. A double is 2 men in a boat, each with an oar each, 2 oars each. A pair is 2 men in a boat, just with 1 oar each. Then you have fours and quadruples. Again, a four, it's 4 guys with 1 oar each. A quadruple is 4 men with 2 oars each. And then the biggest boat category is the 8, which is just 8 guys with 1 oar. You don't have a 2 oar option in that. And we divide those two down into sculling and sweep rowing. Sculling is 2 oars in a boat. Sweep rowing is 1 oar. You're holding 1 oar in a boat. Basically, pound for pound, if you like, a sculling boat will go quicker than a rowing boat. So a double will go quicker than a pair.
Which ones would have the cocks?
In terms of international rowing, you can have a Coxed 8, a Coxed 4, and there is a Coxed pair event as well. But the Coxed pair has really faded out over the last 15-20 years, and so it's really just down to Coxed 4 and Coxed 8 now. In club rowing, you get much more Coxed boats. So particularly for juniors, there's Coxed quadruple sculls, because the way the boat is steered when it's Coxed-less is one guy in the boat will have a rudder attached to his foot, and he will turn his foot one way or the other, turning the rudder and making the boat move in various directions. Now, it takes quite a lot of skill to be able to do that, as well as rowing at the same time. So we tend to take that burden away from the more inexperienced rowers, so that they have more Coxed boat options.
Now, during some of the filming I've been doing recently, when I go down to sort of like Eccleston, I noticed that a lot of the rowers are putting the blades in the water at the correct time and the right angles.
Right.
Explain about that.
That's poor technique.
How do you actually, as a coach, how do you discipline a person to get the right technique?
Well, I mean, a lot of it is, people generally don't try and row badly. It's making them aware of what they're doing. So there's a number of ways you can do it. Obviously, you can tell them what they're doing wrong, but it's quite difficult for people to look outside the boat and look at themselves mentally. They need to get a mental image of what they're doing wrong before they can make a change. So what we try and do a lot of in rowing is we have various exercises that we can do where we break down the rowing stroke into particular sections, or where the exercise will put emphasis on a particular element of the rowing stroke, which hopefully will identify the problem for them. They'll get a feel for what they should be doing, and then when they go back to rowing normally, they will have corrected the mistake. But it takes a lot of time to correct a mistake. I mean, they say that they reckon that it takes about 10,000 strokes to effectively make a change in a rowing boat. So it goes from being a very conscious change to being an instinctive element of the rowing stroke.
So from the coaching point of view, can you actually see which muscles are sometimes out of balance?
Yeah.
There's should do the right stretching exercises for the ligaments.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, you can identify that quite easily. I mean, rowing doesn't put an awful lot of stress on the range of movement of your average person. In fact, you'll find a lot of rowers are very, very tight in their muscles.
What about the flexibility of the back?
Well, the flexibility, the main flexibility areas that we look at in rowing are around the hip area, the pelvic area, and around the gluteal muscles around the bum, and then down the hamstrings on the back of the leg. Because what we try and do in a rowing stroke is we try and, once we take an oar out of the water, we try and transfer our body weight towards the stern of the boat so that we can pick the bows of the boat out of the water, allowing the boat to run on. So that requires, if you can imagine sitting on the floor and trying to reach for your toes, that's what we're trying to do. But we don't want to do it by just curling the back, because you're taking away activation of the core muscles, which are very important. And then when you get to take the stroke,
I'm glad you mentioned about the core.
All right, okay.
It's something that people need to be educated about. Don't you agree about the
Yeah. I think rowing's been one of the sports at the forefront of that. I mean, because in the rowing stroke, what you're trying to do, the prime movers in the rowing stroke are your legs and your gluteals. But obviously you've got to transfer any leg drive you have through to a handle. So you're transferring your power from your legs through to a handle. And the only way you can transfer that power is through your core. So it's very important that your core is strong and engaged through the rowing stroke, otherwise you're not going to be able to transfer that power effectively. So we spend a lot of time thinking about that, doing various core exercises, and we really emphasise the core as part of the rowing stroke to try and strengthen it the whole time. Rowing in a way is the ultimate team sport, because you're asking up to 8 people to sit in a boat and repeat exactly the same movement as each other 240 times over a 6-minute period. And to do that, you've got to be physically very similar, or have physically the similar sort of range of movement, but you have to be mentally in tune as well. So you do look at the balance of it, and also in a boat, different personalities suit different positions in a boat. You have the stroke man, who's the guy at the front of the crew, setting the rhythm, getting things going. He tends to be more of a fiery personality. He drives himself on, a bit more of an individual. Whereas the two guys sat behind him are responsible for transferring that rhythm that he's establishing to the rest of the crew. So you do have to think about the balance of a crew if you're going to be effective. Paul Turner, I'm the senior men's coach for Grosvenor Rowing Club.
Thank you.
One time where I'm very aggressive.
That's tomorrow.
That is outstanding.
Where's the meeting? Go help us out with us. Last year. My dog had the wrong rest.